Hello, and welcome to the Patron's Perspective. We're going to be looking at an overview of consumer buying behavior and a timeline for passionate arts enthusiasts of how and when they're ready to return to theaters. I'd like to start by introducing myself. My name is Kara Parkinson. I'm the Vice President of Marketing at AudienceView. I've been here for the last 3.5 years. Before joining AudienceView, I worked in marketing at Intuit QuickBooks, at Apple, and I started my career in consumer goods at organizations like Pepsi and Nestle. I am a self-proclaimed and very widely acknowledged data geek. I love research, love talking to our clients, and I jumped at the chance to share this study with you. So where did this start from? Let me tell you about Unobstructed. At AudienceView, we understand what it's like to have an obstructed seat at an event. This can extend into our day-to-day lives when you only have some information or a partial view of what's going on around you. Unobstructed was launched in 2020 to help resolve this issue for you when it comes to the live events industry. We are excited to positively impact professionals who work behind the scenes in live events to ensure that, over the long term, the show will always go on. We aim to inform, engage, and educate the industry that we love. With Unobstructed, we pay homage to live events professionals and others who work in all aspects of entertainment. We bring you subject matter experts, innovative ideas, and market trends that we are in a unique position to share. We conducted the first round of the study in May of 2020 to understand how passionate theatergoers were reacting to COVID-19 and its impact on live events. As COVID has raged on, we thought it was important to check in with those same enthusiasts to understand if their perspectives were changing and to discover what we could learn from them on how best to adapt going forward. While I will cover some of what I consider the most impactful lessons from this study, I couldn't cover it all in the time we have allocated. At the end of this presentation, I'll provide you with information on how to download the full study for yourself and for your organizations. We conducted the study through our TheaterMania audience, and we heard back from more than 3,300 members of this 3.1 million strong audience of avid theatergoers to understand how this ongoing health crisis is impacting their behavior and consumption of performing arts. We conducted the study over a 14-day period from November 25th to December 8th, 2020. And because, as mentioned, I am a data geek and I want to satisfy that part of my soul, I want to assure you that the data has a margin error of 2% at 95% confidence, which is very accurate. It's been generated from survey results and is intended to help arts organizations of all sizes to find ways to drive revenue during our industry intermission and to help them with preparations for reopening theaters. This aims to uncover the new behaviors of theatergoers, including opinions about safety protocols that make them feel most comfortable, their motivations and timelines for when they're willing to return to theaters, their spending intent, how likely they are to pay for virtual events, plus some tidbits from them on how much they're willing to pay to help support lost revenue caused by reduced capacity once you do open again. But are they the real deal? We asked them how often before COVID hit that they were going to the theater. And 94% said they went 2 or more times per year before the COVID-19 shutdown, with almost 63% saying they went every chance they got. These are people who truly are missing events as part of their entertainment and who have real opinions on what it will take to get them back through the doors and when they'll be ready to do that. So let's dive in. I'm going to cover 3 areas with this insight. First, I want to talk to you about streaming and virtual events. Then, the whole concept of returning to live events and what this audience is expecting, what it'll take to get them back in your buildings. And finally, the big question, will they put their money where their mouths are? So first, streaming. I'm sure you've seen lots of conversations at every outlet that you go to talking about streaming. And it's been a constant topic of conversation with your industry peers over the last 10 months. This is a very hot topic. So we asked this group of people, a reminder, the majority of whom went to theater every chance they got, if they're now ingesting streamed events. I do want to clarify before we go on that I'm referring specifically to content that formerly would have been a live event, like a theater, like a show in a theater or a concert, which is now provided on platforms like YouTube or Vimeo, not things like Netflix, Hulu, Prime Video, Apple Plus, other sites that are streaming films and television shows. So first, are they watching these types of events? 77.4% said yes, they are. What's interesting is we've seen almost no change in that number from the May survey until now. In May, it was about the same percentage additionally, but there are definitely things that have changed. We asked them if they're still enjoying these live streams. Are they still loving this online version of their preferred art form? Well, yes, but their appreciation is diminishing over time. In May, 75.6% said they were enjoying the live streams. While the majority still say they like it, it is less overwhelming than when COVID first hit. In the verbatims, the quotes from the respondents, we hear consistently about some really great work that organizations are doing. They talk about Geffen or the Irish Rep, who have created content that is optimized for an at-home experience. But we are also hearing loud and clear that only being able to experience these events online is draining. And there is definitely a hunger to return to in-person events. One very dramatic shift that we're seeing from May until now is an attendee's willingness to pay. In May, only 26% said they paid for a live event, which made absolute sense. When the pandemic first hit, we were all focused on keeping our customers engaged and bridging a gap. As it carried on, the events organization recognized that we needed to generate revenue and began to charge for more events. And now in our current study, almost 65% say they are paying for these streamed events. There's a few hypotheses. It could be both because we in the industry have actually figured out how to do this, because our revenue needs have mandated it, or possibly that the reluctance of the audience to pay for these has diminished over time. I have a few quotes for you from some of the attendees and from some of the respondents. First, I think online performances may be the only way to participate in theater until the vaccine is delivered and fully embraced. So that means that the theater world needs to pivot to modifying online performances to be as effective as television is now, shorter, crisper, and engaging. That was Eleanor M. from New York City. David from Washington, D.C. said, "We have seen a lot of digital theater in the past 8 months. The good has been pretty good, and the bad has been terrible. We anticipate this will be our major contact with the theater for the coming year. Even with the announcement of vaccines, we do not anticipate returning to theater for at least a year." One interesting point for you, we had asked audiences which streaming services they were subscribed to, and almost 18% had a Broadway HD subscription. There is definitely a hunger for theater, although it hasn't fully transferred to the online version. Returning to venues. If our audience is hungry to return to venues and experiences in person, what will it take to get them there? We asked a series of questions about timing, the measures they expect to see in place, and the watchouts are for you from an operational perspective. The number one expectation by far is a mask policy. Having a mandatory mask policy is extremely important, as 93.5% said they would not attend an event that does not require patrons to wear a mask. For many theater goers, it's not just enough to have a mandatory mask policy. Patrons want the policy to be strictly enforced and offenders to be removed from the building. So what are their other expectations? If you remember when COVID first hit, we were worried about surface areas. I don't know about you, many of my friends and family were leaving their groceries outside or washing them before they brought them into the house. So this whole idea of a cleanliness policy was definitely something that we wanted to understand as we put out the survey. We asked, how important is it to you that the theater you're attending publishes their cleaning procedures in advance? Well, if you look at May versus December on the chart on the screen, cleanliness is still important. 40% are saying they want you to publish your cleaning policies before they come to the show. But that has diminished over the past 6 months. The ranking of very important has gone down from 52 to 40. What else is important? We asked the respondents to rank the following protocols in terms of what will make them most comfortable to attend a theater event. First and foremost, what you see is our audience, like most of us, are waiting for that vaccine. Interestingly, you saw a few pages ago, our panel overwhelmingly at 93.5% said they wouldn't attend an event without an enforced mask policy. Well, that is incredibly important to them. That is still a distant second to the vaccine and making them comfortable to attend a show. And then trailing behind the mask wearing are distance seating, temperature checks, and other additional testing at a very distant, distantly lagging the vaccine. We asked both in May and in December, which elements of attending an event make your audience feel uncomfortable? And what you see on the screen here is which ones are they feeling better about, so with the arrow pointing up, and which ones are they feeling worse about with the arrow pointing down. Let me start by saying these are all elements of attending live events that are making your patrons nervous to varying extent. In the area in which they were most comfortable, which is food and beverage service, only 8.8% said they were very comfortable with this element of attending events. So top left, arrivals and departures. 72.6% said they are not comfortable at all with the arrival and departure experience. But interestingly, versus May, they are starting to feel somewhat better about this element. The coat check, which is top right. Coat check, 53.9% said they're very uncomfortable with the idea of waiting in coat check lines. In the spring, only 30% said this. I'm not sure if time and perception or the fact that it's cold outside and they have big heavy coats now has changed their mind. Being seated next to strangers continues to be their kryptonite. 77.7% say they're very uncomfortable, and only 4% say they're very comfortable with this idea. But they are feeling somewhat better about this than they were in the spring. For food and beverage service, this has actually become a greater issue. This may be a reflection of how little anyone was dining out in the first few weeks of COVID and not yet having a real perception of about how they feel about this. What it boils down to is crowds in close proximity to fellow attendees continue to make people feel the most comfortable. So what we'd suggest is consider building in protocols to limit the queues and general bunching of attendees. A quote for you from one of the survey respondents: having assigned seats and have assigned guests enter only one row at a time. And when the show is over, have the back row exit out first and continue on. We all need to respect each other because the show must go on. And that was Katrina in Brockton, Massachusetts. So the big question, when will they be ready to return? Once you've relieved them all of their concerns with your outstanding pre-event emails and policies, when do our audience think they're going to be ready to come back into a show? Almost 70% believe they'll be ready and comfortable to return in person into indoor events by June 2021 or sooner. Only 1.5% of those real pessimists, and they're saying 2023 or beyond. So the question pressing all of us, will they put their monies where their mouths are? In this survey, we really believed it was important to understand both our customer spending habits now, as well as a tolerance for price and price changes in the future. So let's dive into this. We asked if patrons are actively buying tickets now for events in the future, and 13.1% said yes. Something I've found interesting is that when we asked this in our first survey in May, early in COVID, before skepticism and defeatism had set in with many, This number was actually virtually the same at 14.8%. There is always an element of wishful or hopeful buyers. So what can we do with this? I think that communication and transparency, specifically around safety protocols, refund policies, and venue cleaning are key to increasing buyer confidence, ultimately leading to advanced ticket sales. As well, you can consider offering refund protection. 30.2% said yes to the question of, are you likely to pay for refund protection? And this can help protect both you and your attendees. So a few quotes again from the respondents. Be flexible with ticket sales and refunds. We all want to do what we can and stay safe. And that's Samantha in Staten Island, New York. To prevent sick people from showing up, refunds and exchanges should be offered to theater patrons if they're ill, from Francis in East Brunswick, New Jersey. So how about virtual? As we continue to look forward, it's a valuable question to ask if our clients are planning to continue to buy tickets for virtual or streamed events in the future. And again, this is solely streamed or virtual events that used to be live events like theater or concerts. Only 21% said a clear no, indicating there continues to be an opportunity to share our content via this medium. So what about other alternatives? We're continuing to see throughout the industry and throughout my own customer base at AudienceView a real creativity in what organizations are offering in order to provide safe entertainment. Specifically, we asked with this idea of drive-in experiences. What I found interesting is, while a small portion of the audience had tried it, only 8% of our respondents had tried a drive-in experience. They overwhelmingly loved it. 89% said it was an excellent experience. So my challenge to you is, and question to you is, have you explored all the options and how to use your space and how to bring your events to life? But how much are they interested in returning? Yes, the patrons say they want to come back, but only 13% are buying tickets. And they've told you what they want you to do in order to make them feel comfortable, but are they willing to offset the cost of this? We all know there's a financial gap that we'll need to make up, as well as increased costs that come with socially distant seating and new safety protocols. Interestingly, 78.1% of our patrons, which is up from 72.8% in our May survey, are willing to pay more for tickets to offset the revenue loss associated with the new safety protocols. That includes 9% saying they'd be willing to cover more than a 25% increase in ticket prices so they can get back to live shows. And I love the 1.5 say they'd be willing to pay 50 to 100% more. Another 1.5% said they'd be willing to pay even more than double current prices. As well, 69.7% of our survey respondents said they've donated to a performing arts organization since the beginning of COVID. They continue to believe in you, believe in your mission, and they want to see it survive and thrive. Our audience continues to be invested in the industry and are looking forward to coming back. So what are the conclusions that I hope you take with you? First, attitudes to paying for streamed events have changed over time. They continue to watch, are more likely to pay, but are less excited about virtual and wanting to get back together in real life under the lights with you. Theater patrons' expectations of venues around safety protocols is becoming clearer and directly impacts their willingness to return to live events. They expect you to have and enforce a mask policy. They want to understand your protocols before they choose to come to your venue and are very much looking forward to vaccination. Theater lovers are willing to pay more to offset the cost of physical distancing, and their willingness to do so is growing over time. 78% said they'd pay more to cover your costs, and that willingness to pay is increasing throughout this intermission. Our audiences are willing and excited to return. They need to feel safe, but they see a light at the end of the tunnel. The majority believe that we are less than 6 months away from being ready to return to the show. Thank you all so much for your time today. We at AudienceView are pleased to make the full results of this research available to our performing arts community at no charge. You can download it now at audienceview.com/unobstructed. And please check out some of the other content while you're there. We look forward to hearing about how theaters use this information when developing their reopening timeline and operational plans. If you have stories to tell or more to add to the conversation, you can reach me on Twitter or on LinkedIn at Parkinson Cara. You can see my team's email address above, or you can come visit the AudienceView team or myself in our show booth here at Intix. Thank you very much.